Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we have so much news. We'll have a lot of news to go cover, especially throughout this week, and with all this really big court drama coming out. And this is actually some even bigger news too when it comes to PlayStation 6, PlayStation 5 Pro, all in terms of like proper legal documents, which also kind of has like a lot more merits. It's not just like some random guy being like, yeah, Sony did this. It's basically all through actual proper court stuff and discussions of PlayStation versus Xbox. We also had even some really big drama when it comes to Xbox as well, and PlayStation. Basically, this been the biggest drama back and forth we've seen in a very long time when it comes to gaming as a whole. So we're gonna go talk about this, talk about the next gen consoles more so, and we'll go and see everything else throughout this entire weekend because there is so much to go and cover. So make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We're gonna try our best to give you guys some pretty concise and hopefully good rambles and talks throughout this ongoing court battle. So make sure you guys check out the Twitter and Twitch down below. We also have the Amazon links too as well down below. And of course, give me your thoughts and comments. And let's dive into the very first and foremost, talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro, and as well the expected reveal now for the PlayStation 6 on the release here and everything else in between, and a few other little things. So first and foremost, the PlayStation 5 Pro probability has actually been kind of discussed right now in terms of the court, and when it comes to, like, say, Call of Duty, in terms of planning for future releases, in terms of everything else in between. So right now, the PlayStation 5 Pro probability was actually boosted now by Microsoft's reveal of expected PlayStation 6 release year. So basically, Microsoft's out here throwing some big bangers, talking about even for PlayStation 5 Pro, which would also maybe correlate to as well to the Xbox Series X Pro or the next iteration of Xbox 2, because typically they do try to launch around the same, if not the like literal almost same day. So, the expected Sony PlayStation 6 release date or year has been surprisingly stated by rivals Microsoft. So basically it was leaked over here by Xbox itself. At least it's always tentative too as well, although typically like we've been seeing like a pretty consistent like 6 to 9 year range or so we can kind of somewhat pinpoint that depending if there's a Pro mid-generation upgrade or like a Slim mid-generation upgrade. So in a statement made by the current Federal Trade Commission versus Microsoft Corp et al. Court case, it was revealed that the next-gen consoles from both PlayStation and Xbox lines could turn up now in 2028, and once again thus boosting the likelihood of a PlayStation 5 Pro or a PlayStation 5 Slim mid-console cycle. So let's go talk about this a little bit more. Number one is that obviously when it comes to these types of dates, typically like Xbox would probably know the best on when to expect the next released console. As I'm sure you guys know, there usually is a same year release window typically for them to compete against each other. I also look at the same exact thing too as well from the Xbox Series X and PlayStation. They were literally like hours apart from release time, if you guys remember that. So it also makes sense too, where if Xbox would be like, yeah, for us to go develop and usually kind of do all the testing, quality assurance, like working with the actual kind of like good deals and all of this, it probably takes us, let's go and say 8 years. And on top of that too, if they literally release it around the same time as PlayStation, or as well, they just know, like, you know, like if you guys don't think all these big companies don't just be gossiping over dinners off the book, if they got their buddies or executives or whatever it might be to try to get a nice little deal, yeah, people talk without a doubt. So it also make a lot of sense too as well because they're such close competitors. So pretty much number one, big thing in terms of Xbox themselves. And on top of that too, probably expected the same date for the Xbox Series X Pro, but on part two, also expected for the PlayStation, etc. 2028 does seem by court documentations of what we're expecting for this next-gen console. Now, why we might be talking about the PlayStation 5 Pro or Slim is because as of right now, that is still an 8-year total window. So it also makes a lot of sense too for like a 4 or 5 year cycle. So let's say 2025, which is roughly what we might be expecting for a Pro version, give or take, or maybe holiday season 2024, which would also then let people line up for 4 years or so, give or take, depending on just how they want to release it, or even like the middle, like 2025 at the start of the year, give or take. So that kind of just makes sense because you're not going to have a PlayStation 5, especially at Xbox Series S, running for another, at this point, 5 years. It's just the technology is going to go and expand on it. It's going to become obsolete. It's just not going to be worth it for any of these types of gamers. It'll hold things back. But if you have a Pro iteration, there's a little bit of a difference on that. So Microsoft is currently battling the Federal Trade Commission, or the FTC, which is trying to stop the Xbox maker from snapping up Activision Blizzard. And the United States $69 billion acquisition deal has already faced obstacles in the UK, with the CMA rejecting the deal itself. And now the FTC is going to have similar concerns about shifting power into the sector. While this has been going on, some interesting revelations have appeared, with the reference to the PlayStation 6 release date of 2028 once again being made. So a few things to kind of break down from there. Number one is, if you guys know, a lot of information is going to be coming out from PlayStation or Xbox. And these really big legal court cases such as the FTC, basically PlayStation has to go and step up and talk about this stuff and kind of call out Xbox. Or as well, Xbox has to refute all these really big issues and deals if they think they need to, if they think there's a big enough reason for them to. And that's a big thing to go and know because, well, you have to. This is like legal law. They cannot lie about this stuff because if they're like, yeah, we're going to release a console in, like next year, and then they go and find out that never happened, and that's just like a big legal. It's just, you guys know, you just basically can't lie in court, essentially. Like, this could be backtracked. You could have millions of dollars being spent on lawyers. It's one of those big things. So basically, this has happened apparently before. When the CMA filings, if you guys remember these videos, showed that Microsoft would keep offering lucrative Call of Duty games to the PlayStation platform if it acquired the game's publisher Activision. Sony argued that access would be lost after 2027, meaning the popular IP would not be available in time for its next-gen console, presumably the PlayStation 6 release. Now, I want to go in a little bit more extra on this because we did go cover this a little bit on the CMA talk when it came out, where if you guys look at this stuff, they actually also even mentioned in court today, if you guys are watching the hearing, probably not, but they also had Phil Spencer go and be a little bit beating around the bush when it comes to some of these exclusivity deals, when it comes to, like, say, Call of Duty and all these other various games, where they're sitting down and being like, hey, yeah, for the PlayStation 5, we should see no issues whatsoever. But if you guys also kind of go and ever want to listen to either legal talk or lawyer talk or more so PR talk, yeah, they especially on multiple different occasions mention the PlayStation 5 as being like, oh, we'll make sure the deal's all good for the PlayStation 5. We'll make sure everything's all set for the PlayStation 5, which, as you guys can probably read, especially in why we're highlighting this right now for the next gen consoles, 2028. Is only at this point, funny enough, it's only like 5 years away, and they were initially trying to offer a 10-year deal for Call of Duty, etc. But on top of this, too, it kind of seems like the current expansions and contracts are basically stopping around the 2027 mark, and that would be basically Xbox's scapegoat to be like, well, we did all for them to go and support the PlayStation 5, or as well, kind of how we even kept on seeing PlayStation 4 games for quite some time. Imagine the future, like what if Xbox was like, yeah, we're going to keep on making Call of Duty until 2030. For the PlayStation 5. And after a certain point, it's just obsolete where the games just look very awful and mediocre and they're not good. But in terms of their contract law, they realize, like, yeah, we are still supporting the PlayStation 5 as they try to have everyone else move over to PlayStation 6, etc., etc. So it's very, very intriguing to go and see. So basically, yeah. The new claim by Microsoft over here too as well in regards to Call of Duty availability, stating this term would in any case go beyond the expected starting period of the next generation of consoles in 2028. It would seem that 2028 really could be the year the PlayStation 6 launched. So kind of as I'm saying for this one, in terms of the legal law, they have to make sure, because there was a little bit of discussions on, say, Skyrim and Starfield and all these other various games and exclusives, where they have to make sure that they're very clear on this. I'm sure the legal lawyers will be, and I'm sure they're paid a lot of money to make sure they are, but this case is a big deal. But once again, this does go and allude towards the fact that a PlayStation 6 could be coming sooner rather than later. And of course, as I mentioned, the Xbox Series X Pro, or the next generation of Xbox, would most likely also exist in the same exact time period, because they pretty much usually match the same launch year regardless, and it makes a lot of sense. So in a separate and reasonably accurate report created in 2017 by Goldman Sachs, like the very big banking company, suggested a timeline of the 2027 for the PlayStation 6, after correctly predicting 2020 for the PlayStation 5 launch. The report also mentioned 2023 for a PlayStation Portable, which we did actually see some news on that in case you guys want to hear anything more about that, which now appears to be coming in form of Sony's Remote Play Project Q. So right now, a lot of folks, and it's kind of like sometimes a big, I don't want to say duh, but it is a little bit of a duh, where we look through all these games and we see those all different types of games and all this stuff. So it's like you can kind of expect, we usually are a 5-year production window, or the same thing we could use the PlayStation 4 as a good reference of when the next games may go and come out, because it's just a big deal for this one. So basically saying with such a big time gap between the PS5 and PS6 release years from now, also looks a lot likely of having us a mid-tier console refresher, whether it's the Slim or Pro. And a lot of folks have also been discussing it and discussing the leaks on this type of stuff, and it would just make a lot of sense, especially right now, because we did see Xbox do a brand new Xbox Series S console, which, although it's not really a big change when it comes to games itself, it is still technically a brand new console. So once again, there's a lot more news just by kind of common thinking from legal court documents saying that the PlayStation 6 will probably be coming throughout 2027 or 2028, which also once again adds a lot more merit to a PS5 Pro version either in 2024 or 2025. Now, Once again, if you guys are still trying to get your consoles in general, I'd probably say it's probably fine, mainly because these games will still be properly optimized for a lot of this type of stuff. Like compare the PS4 to PS4 Pro, it wasn't really that much of a big difference. It was better, obviously, but it wasn't like the biggest distinction. But I think one of the bigger things is knowing the Xbox Series X Pro, what it's going to be called, is a very, very intriguing thing that still hasn't really been leaked or talked about too much, but it would make a lot of sense to go and see in general. But just letting you guys know, these big court documents have had a lot more play. We have a lot more news and rumors with it, so we're going to keep talking about this throughout the next few weeks especially. And if you guys want to keep on seeing more court information, let me know. Make sure you guys are subscribed, notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch room down below as well. We have the Amazon links too, and I appreciate y'all so much for watching in the first place.